White, 1 month, 1 year. Does age actually make a difference? Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Beaver and today we are touching on a hot button subject, oaking versus aging. Now, a couple of things to note for this video. Number one is I screwed up royally when it came to this experiment. Now, the whole experiment ran for about a year, not about a year, but exactly a year. And yeah, I screwed up. So yeah, more on how I screwed up at the end of the video. Now, this subject is such a hot button subject, or there is so many different opinions when it comes to oaking versus aging and how to age your spirits, that I decided to pull in the wizard of aging your spirits, Dave from Age Whiskey. Now, I spoke to Dave, and if you haven't seen Dave's channel, I'll put a link down in the description box. I'll also link a video up here where he did a toast versus char matrix, a super interesting video. So yeah, please go check it out up top here, and his link to his channel will be down in the description box as well. Let's quickly head over to me and Dave's chat where we discussed what to expect from this experiment we did. Let's get into the chat.
Yeah, thanks, Beaver. I really appreciate it. Also, thanks for taking the time just to chat with me, man. This is really a cool thing for me. I love connecting to anybody that's connected to this whiskey industry and loves geeking out in the same way I do, man. This is really a joy for me. So thank you.
Welcome, brother. Welcome. So yeah, like I said, I wanted to reach out to you to discuss an experiment I'm doing to see what kind of input you can give me and see if we can formulate some form of a prediction what the flavors are going to be like. And like we chatted offline quick, we've got three different spirit, or three of the same spirit that was distilled. It was a malted sorghum and yellow corn whiskey, close to a bourbon profile. It has 51% yellow corn in the white dog. The spirit was distilled over a year ago. Then what I did is I added the first bottle, or 600 mils, onto oak and left it to age for 1 year. 1 month before I took that one off of the wood, I then went ahead and took 5 times the amount of oak that I added into the spirit from 1 year aged, or the 1 year aged spirit. I then put 5 times the amount of wood and left it for 1 month, and then yeah, took it off the wood. And now yeah, to see what's the difference between oaking and aging, because I think there's a big difference between the two, and I think people tend to get the two subjects confused. So yeah, so what do you think might have happened?
So yeah, there's a huge difference between oaking and aging. You're absolutely right. Aging is the process of not only just time over a complete period of time, but it's the entire process of oxygen, oak, all these kind of allowing the combinations of these chemicals just kind of sit there and just work their way into each other. So I totally agree with you. I think that, and I don't know if you want to show the bottles. So the oaked with the darker one, that's been oaked for, you said that was 1 month?
1 month, yeah.
So and that's a 5 times the amount of weight in wood, is that right?
Yeah. So it's 5 times the amount of wood, exactly the same toast, and everything that the previous wood went through. It came from the same block of wood, and all that. So everything came from the same block of wood and all the fun stuff. But it was just 5 times the amount that I aged the first bottle on, that was only aged for 1 year.
So when I'm looking at weighing wood and trying to figure out how much wood I should put on whiskey, I typically, instead of weight, I use surface area.
Now, as you saw there, Dave is a mad scientist when it comes to the aging process of your whiskies or your spirits. Now he takes a commercial product and he ages it in different methods, or he pulls the aging process apart by putting oxygen and movement and all the other fun stuff that he does on his channel. So yeah, please go check out his channel. If you also want to see the rest of that chat, please let me know down in the comments, because it was about an hour worth of chatting that me and Dave did regarding the whole aging process and what to expect from the aging process of your whiskey. So yeah, if you want to see the full chat, please let me know down in the comments, and I will gladly upload that video for you guys to watch. Now, on to the actual experiment. What was the purpose of the experiment? Just over a year ago, I made a whiskey that was made with malted sorghum and corn. Now, the original whiskey that came off the still wasn't one of my favorite whiskeys. It was very sweet and pretty one-dimensional when it came to flavor. Now, I decided to age roughly 600 mils of that whiskey that came off the still, and I added 1 heavy toasted oak stave and 1 charred oak stave, toasted and charred oak stave, into the 600 mils of product at 55%. Now, it has been standing for 1 year, and you can see the color and everything that came off as it came off the wood. It has a nice deep yellow color, but not too dark. Then as the time progressed, and I tasted the white dog as the time progressed, and it changed in complexity. So that gave me the idea for an experiment. 1 month out before 1 year was over for this whiskey to be taken off the wood, I decided to see what will happen if I take 5 times the amount of wood that I used to age my 600 mils of 55% whiskey with, and to see what will happen if I do that. So that is 5 times the amount of wood that I added into 600 mils of the white dog. Left it for 1 month, took it off the wood. Now, this was the result. Number one, there's a big color difference. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but one is yellow, the other one has more of an umber color. As for the taste and the smells, in that video that I did with Dave, there was a complete tasting explanation and all that other stuff. He did some cross-examination and that type of stuff to see what kind of flavors I can pick up in that whiskey. Quite interesting. But yeah, I'll do a tasting on the camera now just to give you guys the highlights. That was the gist of it. So let me quickly do a overview of the 3 products. And like I said, the white dog has changed in complexity over the last year that it has been standing, year and a bit. It has been changing in complexity. Now, over here we have the white dog. When it came off the still first, it was a very one-dimensional, very sweet whiskey. It didn't have a lot of grain flavor, didn't have a lot of malt flavor. But yeah, it wasn't a bad whiskey, just not my favorite. Right now, the whiskey has turned into a slightly more complex whiskey. It's not one of the most complex whiskeys. It's not even close to that stout whiskey that I did. If you want to check out that video, link in the description box up here. But it has changed in flavor. It added a little bit, or it took away a bit of that sweetness over time. Some of the grain flavor came back in, and there is a slight hint of malty, grainy flavor in the back. Now, as for the taste, like I said, coming off the still, tasting it for the first time over a year ago, it was very sweet. Now, it has a nice deep grain flavor, still sweet with a slight bitterness in the middle, and yeah, turned into a pretty good white dog. Not one of the best, but a good white dog. Now the moment you have all been waiting for, and that is the tasting of the oaked whiskey versus the aged whiskey. Now, spoiler alert, I preferred the oak whiskey over the aged whiskey. Now that first off confused me quite a bit when I did the tasting with Dave, to such an extent that we had to refilm this video. We had one originally filmed up, and yeah, was not happy with the conclusions that I drawn. as I was driving, doing my day-to-day job. Yeah, just kept bothering me why. So what I did, and here's a warning, if you don't want to know all the math that goes into this, I'll put a timestamp right up here where we get to the conclusion of this whole talk. But if you want to stick around for the maths, thank you very much. Now, what we did is I went and I hit up Dave once again and sent him a Excel spreadsheet that I worked on, where I took all the barrel dimensions from different barrel suppliers on the internet, added it into a spreadsheet, or put it into a spreadsheet, and calculated the volume of the barrel, including the surface area, external and internal surface area, taking into account the wood aspect as well, because if you only take the barrel and you calculate the surface area of the barrel as it stands there according to the measurements that they give you on a website, you're going to end up with the exterior surface area of the barrel and not the interior surface area of the barrel. I then correlated my figures by looking at the calculations for the volume of liquid versus the surface area, and how much surface area do you need to have that volume of liquid, and so on and so forth, and ended up with the answer. Now the answer is I added way too little wood into the 1 year whiskey. Now, two staves, one charred, one heavily toasted was not enough to impart that amount of flavor that is needed for a whiskey for that period. Maybe if I took it off that wood and added more wood in 6 months into it, so I refreshed the stave, I would have had a different result. Now, why do I say that? Well, if you look at what the stave looked like when it went into the whiskey compared to what the stave looks like when it came out 1 year later, and that's the difference. Now you will see that the toasted stave is quite dark and the untoasted stave is quite light. So over the period of a year, this stave gave up all its flavor and color relatively quickly because it had so much contact with the spirit, thus not doing the job that we expected, because the flavors on this 1 year, which we'll delve into a bit more now, were pretty muted. It had good delicate flavors, but they were pretty muted, where on the 1 month spirit, where we added 5 times the amount of wood in volume, so I weighed the wood, toasted and charred at exactly the same ratio we did with the 1 year whiskey, you can see the staves still have a nice, deep, dark, rich color. It hasn't imparted all its flavor yet it has transformed the whiskey extensively. So, for those that have skipped to this part, how did I screw up? Well, number one, I didn't add enough wood into this, or I didn't refresh the stave after a period of time to allow more of that wood flavor to be imparted over a period of time. Number two, I left the oaked whiskey too long. I left it for 1 whole month. Now, to me, that should fall in the parameters of oaking, but for the amount of wood that I added to the whiskey for 600 mils, this was quite a lot of wood, and a relatively long period of time, we actually pulled quite a good amount of flavors in there. So if I have to redo this experiment, I would age it only for 1 week to have that oaking effect, where you only pull out the wood flavors and you haven't started touching that wood candies and the wood sweetness and all the caramels and vanillas that we got when we did this one. So yeah, enough talking, let's quickly do the tasting. So over here we have the 1 month, and it is very sweet, almost cream soda like, vanilla, caramels, and a slight hint of wood in the back. Turned into quite a good whiskey. It's nice and sweet, has a very good finish, nice caramel sweetness with a little bit of vanilla coming in right now as you taste it. And yeah, it turned this pretty one-dimensional whiskey into something that is quite palatable. I think if we leave it for another 2 months with that amount of wood on it, it will turn into a fantastic whiskey. Now for the 1 year whiskey. Now the color, if you only use color as an indicator, it's quite a good whiskey, but not for first use oak staves. So this has still a lot of that sweetness from the original whiskey, but it has a bitter, almost astringent smell from wood at the end. It is sweet, but it is, and the vanillas and the caramels is very muted. It's not nice bold flavors that I'm getting from here. But on the other hand, it has that wood astringency, that bitterness from the wood, which normally comes from age or from over oaking. What I think happened is because that stave drained all the flavor out of it, we ended up, as you saw the color, we ended up with all the flavor of the wood, and that included the bitter barrel wood or barrel tastes that you don't want in a whiskey, or I don't want in my whiskeys. Maybe good for you, but yeah, for me, don't like that bitterness. For the conclusion, what would I do next time? Now, I probably hinted at this quite a couple of times. Number one, if I will ever be doing oaking, where I want that oak flavor in my whiskey, I'll be only doing it for 1 week, allowing the spirit only to pull out the oak flavor and not start pulling out the barrel candies and all that other stuff out of the wood, or the wood candies. What will I do for my long age whiskies? Well, what I'll do is I will occasionally pull out one of the staves and refresh the stave. Maybe even decrease the stave size over time. So start off with 2 staves like this for 3 months, then take out 2 of the staves and replace it with 1 new one. And then another 3 months go by, I will replace it with half the stave and carry on doing that up until the end of the aging process, or when I hit the flavor profile that I want. So I think by refreshing the staves as you are aging, you will be getting the wood impact that you require, but you will not be getting that heavy, bitter, almost over oaked flavor that we got from the 1 year. So yeah. Now, just a quick reminder, please go check out Dave's channel, Aged Whiskey. Once again, link down in the description, and there will be a video linked up here. Just want to thank Dave for the patience he's had with me when I got all confused about the aging stuff, because, as I said, I got very confused real quick why we had so much flavor in the 1 month and not in the 1 year. Thanks Dave for helping me out with that. So yeah, if you stuck around this far, please remember to hit that subscribe button down in the corner, give the video a thumbs up, leave a comment down below if you want to see that chat that I had with Dave, and as always, have a lekker day.